Welcome back to Science Periodically, everyone, the show where you get a quick break from home isolation while getting to know the school of science. My name is Dustin Ryder, and I'm your host for today's episode of Science Periodically. So you guys may be used to our guests being faculty here at the School of Science, but this week is a bit special. Our guest is actually a science student, Alexa Soto. Our interview with her will be all about undergraduate research, dorm life, and pretty much everything else. But before we head into that interview, I do want to go over a few news articles and our weekly scientist riddle. Last week's riddle was a war was waged between Edison and I, where the stakes were mighty high. I do believe currents should alternate rather than be direct and head straight. The answer for that riddle was Nikola Tesla. The car company Tesla was actually named after this electrical engineer and physicist. Tesla is known for his contributions to alternating current as an electrical supply system. He also created the Tesla coil, which is actually an invention that is still in use today by the radio industry, which I found very fascinating. The winner of last week's riddle is Ayesha Patel, and I believe she's actually in the participation, so congratulations. We're going to email you here shortly so you have free reign over the prize that you want. So again, congrats. Now, if you guys want to be next week's winner, make sure you listen and submit your guests to science@iupui.edu. That being said, the riddle for this week's is, to make a call, you must use a phone, which may be an Apple, the business that I own. I may not be a true scientist, but I change the technology environment. Who am I? So if you think you know the answer to this week's riddle, send them on over right now to our email, science@iupui.edu. Again, you have your own choice of prize. If you need to hear the riddle once more, you guys can stick around for the end of this week's episode. With that being said, the news section has arrived, hot off the press and ready for you folks. Our first piece is all about climate change in Indianapolis. This is important as the number of summer days recording extreme heat are increasing all over the globe. Concerned climate scientists tracking these numbers use this to understand what the trend means to Indianapolis and its residents. Initial projections showed that mid-latitudes and polar latitudes are warming more significantly than the rest of the globe. And guess what? Indiana is right there in the mid-latitudes, meaning we need to prepare for many more heat waves of more intense and longer duration. So NASA's Earth Applied Sciences and IUPUI are working to identify the areas of Indianapolis that will kind of be most affected by this extreme temperature and how to kind of warn our residents. So if you guys look on your screen, the graphic on the left highlights the growing extreme heat vulnerability for Indiana and its neighborhoods over the past couple years. And you can tell by the red and orange that it's getting a little bit worse. So the study is going to work with emergency management agencies in Indianapolis to understand the environmentally and socially vulnerable areas in our city that are more at risk during these events, and identify how the city can best allocate resources in ways as simple as planting trees now to keep areas shady, as well as identifying places to keep residents cool in buildings or even on city buses. This is really important to be prepared to avoid catastrophic heat events, such as what happened in Chicago in 1995, where over 700 people died. So it's good to know that IUPUI and NASA are working together on a plan to keep Indy cool. And then the next piece is a great one for fans of the show Shark Tank. Every year, IUPUI JAG challenges student entrepreneurs, what a mouthful, right? To showcase their product ideas, business ventures, or answers to social problems in a 3 to 5 minute elevator pitch style competition. So if you win, your idea could become a reality. Winners receive both a cash prize and an invitation to take part in the Elevate Ventures Origin program. Man, that is an initiative developed to help aspiring entrepreneurs create an investor-ready business model for their startup. This year's winner was Abhinav Sikaram, who submitted his idea of a smart gadget called Project Ma. So what that does, it nudges users to sit less and stay hydrated, and helps track activities with the help of a mobile app. The gadget also changes colors to alert the user when it's time to say something like stand or drink water. They also honored Joshua Kelly, who created a subscription-based service called Full Court Analytics that offers professional level statistical insights into high school and AAU basketball, allowing coaches to make informed decisions when drawing up their playbook and making roster decisions. So now I know you guys have some really great ideas. So start planning now and look for information about next year's competition in the spring semester through the Institute for Engaged Learning at IUPUI. Again, you could get a cash prize and also that invitation. That actually being said, with the basketball, how many of you guys really watch or play sports? So I know you guys might not answer, but the lack of sports this summer has not made Americans lose their interest in competition, bringing us to this news article. In fact, there was a renewed interest in the annual Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest in New York on July 4th. So as expected, 36-year-old Joey Chestnut successfully defended his title by eating 75 dogs and buns in 10 minutes, setting a new world record. Miki Soto won on the women's side, eating 48 and a half in 10 minutes. So maybe we're reaching a little bit here, but let's talk about the science, specifically the math behind competitive eating. So James Smoliga, a physiologist at High Point University, was watching the competition last year when an idea kind of struck him. He wanted to know, could he apply the mathematical equations used to estimate the limits of athletic performances to feats of gluttony? And to be simple, the answer is yes. So based on competitions from the past 39 years, the active consumption rate curve is starting to flatten. So Smoliga calculated an upper hot dog limit of about 83 hot dogs in 10 minutes. That's 8.3 per minute. So I guess that means Joey Chestnut, we are watching a pretty much near perfect performance. So Smoliga also notes that in sports like track and field, record performances have improved about 40% since record keeping began, but hot dog eating has improved by a whopping 700%. And while that's pretty amazing, I think I'm going to stick with America's imperfect pastime of baseball, and that's going to be starting up next week. And I've kind of always been interested in that. I played it in high school. So let me tell you, those were the times. Other than that, let's talk about our social distancing and virtual opportunities this week. They're all inspirational, fun, and a little bit of educational right in there. So if you're looking for inspiration, watch a free TED Talk at TED.com. We went ahead and kind of included a few that we personally like, but we definitely encourage you guys to explore talks about your interests. So if short and sweet is a little bit your thing, then Matt Cutts' Try Something New for 30 Days is the talk for you. Or perhaps you kind of want to look a little bit more on the side of topics, such as The Revolutionary Power of Diverse Thought by Alif Shafiq. So with quarantine here, self-growth is kind of a concept that a lot of people are exploring. And Amy Cuddy has a TED Talk titled, Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are, which addresses that topic of self-growth. On the educational side of opportunities, you guys can check out ClassCentral.com. Man, let me take a breather, right? So that's a database of free online classes from universities ranging from computer programming to health and wellness to even foreign languages. The classes are for the intellectually curious and they don't offer academic credit. So that means classes are free on an audit level. I do believe if you want to get a certification, you have to pay. Now, if you're searching more for a little bit of fun, such as Disneyland, then this one's for you. So while Disneyland in California may be closed, you can actually visit the top 10 Disney World rides virtual park hopping on YouTube, courtesy of TPM Vids. Lori will actually be putting that link in the chat for those of you that are interested, and you can actually see it right there in the chat now. Now this one, it's a little bit absurd, but it might be the perfect scoop for you. In times of uncertainty, we need a little bit more queso, which means we watch 8 uninterrupted hours of chips slowly being dunked into queso, set to soothing spa music and whispered affirmations such as, let the worry of your day drip away like queso. And that's on YouTube, courtesy of Mo's Southwest Grill. So if you guys go to YouTube and search for Mo's Queso Relaxation, you're more than happy to enjoy it. That puts, looks like Mo's is in the chat. Thank you, Lori. So that's the end of this week's newspaper on Science Periodically. So let's head on into our interview with Alexa Soto. She is a junior psychology major from psychology, and she's also a DSRP scholar, which is also known as Diversity Scholar Research Program. So if any of you folks have questions about dorm life, research, or pretty much anything else, you guys are welcome to put that in the chat. And hey, Alexa, we're actually matching. Haha. So I'm going to unmute you real quick, and then you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. I believe you also have to unmute it on your side. There you go.
All right. Hi, I'm Alexa. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. That's where I am right now. I'm double majoring in psychology and American Sign Language English interpreting. I don't know, what else is there about me? I like to collect earrings. I've been doing that since quarantine started, and I love it so much. I kind of want to make them, but I'm a little hesitant, but it's okay.
I mean, we all got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
That's actually really cool. What kind of earrings, like, are you wearing a pair right now?
Yeah, I'm wearing a pair right now.
Oh, beautiful. I also agree. I'm also wearing some too.
Yeah.
The perks of having piercings, right?
Exactly.
You also mentioned you're out of state right now. You're in Chicago. So how did you kind of learn about IUPUI, and kind of what made you choose to come here and enjoy also like studying at IUPUI?
No problem. Yeah. My high school we use an application called Naviance, and it helped sort colleges out based on what you have interests in. So I wanted to stay close to the Midwest. I wanted to do psychology. I wanted to do sign language. I also wanted an affordable school. And IUPUI popped up, and I was like, okay, this looks like an interesting school. Like, there's a bunch of different things about it. So let's schedule a tour. So then I went on a tour, and I don't know, I fell in love with it. I've been to a bunch of different tours by then, and like the tour guides seemed kind of sad and like mopey, not too excited. And tour guides were so like excited, and I was excited too because they were excited. So that really made me happy and in a good mood. And then just hearing all the things IUPUI had to offer was just really fantastic for me. It checked a lot of the boxes, all of them really. So it just really made me really happy and confident in my choice. And I'm still happy and confident in my choice right now. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So that actually means you're in Chicago, and I highly doubt you want to commute all the way down to Indy every day or whenever you have classes. So I'm assuming you've lived on campus. And I actually believe we've talked about this before. So you want to kind of tell us about that experience and kind of where you've lived?
Yeah, I lived on campus for 2 years. I lived in North Hall. Fantastic. I 100% recommend on-campus housing if you can. You really, really should, especially from being an out-of-state student and being a first gen. You know, college is super scary, and having somewhere to live that's super close, has connections to campus resources is fantastic. That aspect of on-campus housing was great because you're close to the school, you can go to the school easily. It's fantastic. You can wake up 5 minutes before your class and make it on time. It's great.
Man, that sounds so nice.
Yeah, but also I think the community is really important too. It was really important for me to feel safe and welcomed and just a part of some place that made me feel like home, even though my home is 3 hours away. And
Yeah.
housing was really that for me. I love North Hall. If you live in North Hall, fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I really loved on-campus housing. It's fantastic. I would definitely recommend.
Okay, so you mentioned, I caught a little bit on here, you said you're a first generation college student. So that's actually pretty common here at IUPUI. So what was that experience like for you being the first in your family to kind of attend college, and kind of what resources did you find on campus that helped you the most?
Honestly, it was terrifying. It was really scary. Like high school, I was really independent, so I went to a different high school than my family. My family traditionally went to the same high school, but I was different. So
Interesting.
they were kind of scary, but not really because my family had gone to high school, but college was completely different. I had no knowledge of what it was like I see it on TV, like how stereotypical college people are, but that's not really how it is.
Yeah, like the movies where the people are like 30 years old playing 20-year-olds, right?
Exactly. That's not how it is. So I just went in not having any experiences, no knowledge about it, but I quickly became familiar with it. I have two scholarships, and those scholarship groups I'm really close to. I'm in DSRP, kind of mentioned before, in Norman Brown, and having those relationships with those people who have experiences, maybe in college or don't, maybe they're a fresh gen too. So kind of talking to the people who have those similar experiences as me made me feel so much better. And also those scholarships gave me resources to see other people, so that was really important for me. But honestly, just getting out there and trying to talk to people and trying to meet people, to talk about these experiences, like, I don't know, I was freaking out. I didn't know if I belonged, but I felt like I belonged eventually. So
Well, good. I'm glad. That was a huge thing for me. Like I'm also a first gen student and trying to find like that, yes, do I feel welcome here? And I did. I found it pretty quickly. So I'm on you with that one. Now, you actually mentioned two scholarships that you have and kind of briefly talked about them, but can you maybe elaborate a little bit on those in case somebody else might want to like apply for them?
yeah, no problem. So DSRP is the Diversity Scholars Research Program, and I do research through them. So it's fantastic. It's primarily for incoming freshmen, and you get paired with faculty on campus, and you get to work in their lab for the next 4 years. So that's pretty great. Like, you're set. You could do research for 4 years, starting as a freshman. So I've been doing that since my freshman year, and it's been really cool. It gave me those like skills kind of in a lab that some people wouldn't gain otherwise. And then I'm also in Norman Brown Diversity Scholars Leadership Program. Sounds really long.
I know it's always a mouthful, right?
I know, but it's for students of color to come together and talk about like certain issues, social justice issues that are going on, and just a place really for us to feel at home and have a community. So that's really important to me. And that also helped me with a lot of resources. We had different kind of like in bridge and orientation, a lot of the things that the first year students go through, little presentations you get about financial aid or classes or time management. Those kind of things were always pushed to us in those scholarship meetings. So I think that was really important.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. So I'm assuming through the DSRP, that's how you kind of started your research under Dr. Marion Logrip. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so she's got a neuroscience lab, and her research focuses on, from what I understand, stress alcohol interactions in male and female brains with kind of like a specific interest in how those adaptations to stress impact the brain's response. So I don't know if I did that in proper terms. So if you want to maybe elaborate more about what you do for her research.
Yeah, no problem. So our research focuses on stress and its impact on alcohol intake, basically, kind of to sum it up, in male and female rats. So we focus on two different kind of stressors, or we have in this past semester's experiment. We do foot shock stress and we do restraint stress. And these kind of sound scary, but they're not. Foot shock stress is kind of like, to the rats, it's like when you're at a store and you have a cart and you go over that like bumpy part. That's what it is. That's what the foot shock is to a rat. And then the restraint stress is kind of like they're in a tube, and it's like uncomfortable. It's the uncomfortable feeling is the stress.
Okay.
Basically, that stress, depending on what group the rats are in, we're trying to see if the alcohol intake differs depending on the different kind of stress. And we look at this in male and female rats because typically in previous research, there has only been a focus on male rats and their results. And that result has been imposed on female rats and the female brain, although it doesn't work the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we actually got a question from Jack. He wants to know, how many hours a week do you do research?
No problem. I work like 8 to 10 hours a week. That's kind of a reason. That the reason is because my scholarship has a certain hour limit that we have to do, And because of just the work that I have to do in the lab, a lot of the times when I go to the lab to work, it's like a 4, 5, 6 hours straight that I'm working because it's a long procedure that I'm doing. So it'll probably be like 2 or 3 days that I'm in the lab for the week because those chunk of time get a lot of work done. So yeah, like 10 hours if I want to make sure I get everything done and I'm working at the right pace so that the next week can go well. But like 8 to 10 for the scholarship requirement.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I never realized how many like blocks of time you have to do, but I mean, it's research. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of an interesting thing. Did you like have any lab experience? Oh, wait, Denise, actually, before I continue that, Denise says, this year I'll be taking 17 credit hours. I really like this DSRP program, but would it work with that heavy of a workload? What do you think?
For sure. I took 18 credits my first semester of my freshman year. I don't know what I was doing. I was like, I could do this. I could get the maximum credit hours. I was like, I'm gonna do so well in school. And I did. I didn't do bad. I'm not gonna say I did bad, but it's just really you have to be really, really responsible in how you get your work done and how you manage your research and your schoolwork. So you can definitely do it. It just takes a lot of commitment and self, responsibility to be able to get it done.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. When you said 17, or you said 18, but Denise also said 17, and I was like, I've been there before. But okay, so we got another one from Jack. They want to know, I don't know anything about working in a lab, but I'm interested. How long did it take for you to feel comfortable?
Cool. So I had no experience doing research before. I kind of had like my high school self was like, oh, research is like Googling articles and then making a paper about it. So like that is research, but it was complete like this research that I'm doing is completely different. So that was a little bit of a shock to me. I kind of got like information about what I've been doing, what my other friends in the scholarship were doing. So kind of getting that information. It took like a few months to really get in the groove because it was just such a new environment. My first year, I worked in the animal facility too, so that's completely different. I was working with the animals, like just straight up working with the animals. That was super cool, but it was completely new and it felt kind of weird at first. It was like, I'm a student, like I'm a freshman. I feel like this is a big responsibility and they shouldn't be able to let me do this. But honestly, it's like a two-way street. Like they have to trust you and you have to trust them that they trust you to be able to do the work. So honestly, it's great. Even if you're interested, I would do it because it really gains that kind of skill, that responsibility skill. And it just makes you more confident in yourself and helps you realize that you are part of something bigger, which I think is really cool. Like I really think it's so interesting that what I'm doing in the research in the lab is affecting another thing and then another thing. It's just great. Like it makes you feel so good. It makes you feel like you belong there. So, I mean, even if it's a little rocky at first, you get used to it. And my lab is so nice too. So they all try to, your whole lab isn't going to make you want to be scared. You know, they understand that you're a freshman, you're new to college, you've maybe never done research before. So they're not going to try to be like, oh, like, you don't know anything, you don't belong. They're going to try to help you feel as comfortable as you can. And they're there to help you out with any questions. So I think that's really also a great part of it.
Yeah. So you actually mentioned like you didn't really have like any experience going in. So that means you kind of started off with like not knowing anything. So how is your first month compared to like what you're doing today kind of differed?
Cool. So yeah, my first month, it was really a lot of, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know how to do it. So I'm going to try to convince myself that I know what I'm doing. So it was a lot of like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. It was a lot of lack of confidence. And
Yeah.
looking back on it, I was like, wow, I was so scared. Like, why did I let myself be so scared and not be confident? Because I would have been able to be more so comfortable more easily. And I feel like maybe I would have been able to do more in the lab. But then again, I was new and I was nervous. So it's not like I could have done anything for myself. But now it's completely different. Like I walk around the lab, I know where everything is, I know what I'm doing, I feel confident, I feel like I belong. So at first it was like, I don't really know. I have to ask where everything is every 2 seconds, and then I have to ask what I'm doing. But then I got used to it, and then it was great. Yeah.
Well, I'm good. And I'm just glad that you got that confidence. It really makes a big difference, especially when you're in that lab setting. So Denise actually also has a question. She wants to know, do you get paid for the research? And also, is it possible? Oh, Lori popped it up. I almost missed the last of the question. Also, is it possible to apply as a sophomore rather than a freshman? So hold on, Lori also, she kind of answered that last bit. She says, no worries if you don't have a research position your freshman year. Check out all the IUPUI research opportunities. Most of them are paid or have a stipend or scholarship and are open to sophomores and juniors as well as freshmen. So that brings it back. So I guess you can answer, do you get paid for the research that you're doing?
Yeah, so because the research that I'm doing is a part of a scholarship, the scholarship, like the stipend part, is up to the in-state tuition and a housing stipend. So I think it's really great if you're an Indiana resident, you get your tuition paid for and you get a housing stipend. So that's fantastic. I think it's 100% worth it to do the research. Like you get your school paid for doing research. Like that's so cool. That's a great deal. Like I don't know, it's such a great experience. So I think that's really great. And then I know people who do still do research, even though they don't have that scholarship with them. You could always, if you take a class and your professor is talking about their research and you're really interested, you could go up to them during their office hours after class and be like, hey, like, I'm really interested in your research. Could you tell me more about that? And that might open the door to possibly working in their lab. So that's another way of getting involved in research that's not through kind of a scholarship, but also go to the scholarship list and there's plenty of options.
Yeah, so that's actually gonna bring me back to the DSRP. Because I just remembered this. I remember when we were talking on a panel and you said you almost didn't apply for it. It was either that one or the Norman one. And you said it's because you weren't really confident that you'd get into that program, but you did apply. The rest is history. You're here now. So what would you kind of say to those students who don't really think they have those credentials or the know-how to get involved, but they're like still interested in the program?
Yeah. So it was DSRP. The application was so intimidating. It was because it's research. It's such a cool, like, big thing to do, and to offer that to incoming freshmen, it's super intimidating. And I was like, I have the grades, I have the GPA, I have like research with like um, research papers and that kind of stuff. So I feel like I kind of have some research experience, but I feel like I don't have the right research experience. So I was doubting myself a lot, but I'm very glad that I did it. Um, if you're not confident in it, do it. Really just do it. If you have the credentials, even if maybe you don't, they're still going to look at you, you know. If you have a great essay, if you have passion for it, if you're so interested in it, they're going to see that and they're going to be like, I think I want this person to be in my scholarship. They're very understanding. And I know the people in the scholarship who are in charge of the application process, they're really interested in finding people who are passionate about it and who are really wanting to do that and to better themselves and to help them with graduate school and all that. So honestly, just do it. What's the worst that can happen, you know? Like, I think back on it a lot and I'm just like, imagine if I hadn't applied for this scholarship, like, where would I be now? Would I have all these opportunities? And I'm just so glad that I did do the research because I feel so great having, 2 years under my belt already of research. I'm going to have 4 years of research. So that's just really great. And I would 100% recommend it. So just apply for everything that you can. Like there's no reason you shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, especially like a scholarship's a scholarship, man. So you kind of mentioned, I heard you kind of talked about, so papers, research papers. Have you actually like presented or written any research papers since you've been in the lab?
Yeah. So for my scholarship, the first year is kind of like chill with presenting. Like if you want to present your research, you can, but you could take that year and look at other people's research. We go to the conferences anyway, just to go see. I know IU has some conferences, so you can go see the research and be like, oh, okay, this is how people present their research. This is how my friends are presenting their research. This is really interesting. So it really gives you that perspective of like, oh, this is how people see you when you're presenting research. So then my second year, I did present research. I presented twice. One of them was virtual because of COVID, but it was still pretty cool, making the poster and having, trying to present your research in a way that other people can understand and you could show your research to other people. I think that's super cool. It's a little scary at first because it's like, oh, I'm telling people this big thing that I've been doing. Even if it's not big, I'm just telling people what I've been doing. It's kind of nerve-wracking at first, but then it's like, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 2 years. Like, this is just talking about what I do every week. So it's really cool and interesting. And then every year I write like a proposal for the next year of like, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing to like my people in my scholarship, so they know what I'll be doing in the next year, and then like a summary of what I've done for the year. So I think that's really practicing like my writing skills because it's so scientific and cool. And I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Presenting, I'll tell you what, being on the show, it gets you there, man. So Jack wants to know, what do you hope to do after you graduate?
Cool. Big scary thing because I'm a junior. I'm gonna have to start thinking like more seriously about
Yeah.
it. But I want to go to grad school. So having that research experience is really, good for that. It'll help me look better as a candidate. So, I mean, yeah. And then with my sign language part of my major, I want to be an interpreter. So I want to interpret a little bit while I'm in grad school.
Man, that's really cool. That's awesome. I wish the best for you on that. So let's backtrack to your research in the lab. What's kind of the most amazing thing you've ever discovered in your research? Or at least to you. It doesn't have to be like applicable, like you presented it or not, but what do you think was probably the most amazing thing for you?
I don't know. It's like all of it is so great to me. It really is. But honestly, when you find things that contradict what you think is going to happen, like we're all confident, like as researchers, or even me, like mini researcher, kind of having an idea of like, oh, I feel like this is going to happen this way, or like, I really hope to see this, or like, this would be great if I see this. But honestly, it might be a little sad when you see that something is the opposite. So I think my first year, our research showed that the males were drinking more than the females, which was contradicting the typical research that said, well, females drink more after relapse, but males drink less. So it was like the opposite. And it was like, but we're focusing on females and the males are drinking more. We're like, what's going on? So it's kind of just that like science it changes and it's so different and it's so unique. And to have that contradiction, you'd be like, oh, okay, like I didn't see it that way, but that's cool, like our findings, maybe they're like small, but it's still big to us. And to have that like contradiction, it's really interesting. I don't know. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that opens like a whole nother door to your research. So I think it's pretty cool. So you're a psych major and you're working in a neuroscience lab. And that's actually pretty common for people in different majors to do research in different fields here at the School of Science. So what's that like?
I really like it. I think it's cool, it does have some kind of like psychology to it. It has a little biology in it, so it's like different because, in my classes I'm learning like certain things in psychology, the science of psychology, and it's kind of different from neuroscience. There's some things that are the same, but it's different. And having to be in the lab for 10 hours a week, it's like a nice change, it's like something else that I'm interested in. Like even my PI, like she had a business degree, her undergrad degree was business, and then she ended up being a neuroscience, she went to grad school for neuroscience. It's crazy. It's just like our different interests, you can find a way to like put it in there in your college experience. I might not be a neuroscience major, but I have an interest in neuroscience, and that lab is a really important part of it.
Well, good. Yeah, that's nice to hear. So before we end, the interview, I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit, and this kind of goes back to the whole workload thing. So being a science major, it's kind of challenging, and it's time management is very necessary. It's a good skill to have. So I think we've all kind of learned that you need to study a little bit smarter in college than you kind of did in high school. So what do you kind of have as advice for these students that are coming in for their first semester to kind of get them off on that good start, especially since you said you took 18 credit hours your first semester? How did
Yeah.
you kind of get through that?
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging. I'm not gonna lie, it was challenging, especially just coming in as your first year to 18 credit hours plus research plus your social life. So, I mean, that was a lot, but you have to really focus on your goal. You want to be successful, you want to be able to learn as much as you can, you want to do as well as you can in school. So, really being clear with that and saying, okay, I need to make sure my grades are in order to be able to go in the lab, to be able to have free time, to be able to like go out with my friends. So I kind of took advantage of whatever time that I had, whether it be half an hour before my next class or an hour before my next class. I'd get some quick little homework done. If it's just like a response to an article that we had to read, easy, done, so that later I didn't have to do that. Or so that I could go to the lab an hour earlier, get out an hour earlier, and then be able to like have time. So kind of getting that in order before you start school is also really important. Maybe not even to plan out, oh, like I have to do this and then I have to do this every single day. No, it can fluctuate, but just kind of having an idea of how you want things to go will be so much easier when you actually have to go throughout your day and be able to get those things done. So really, it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of hard work and thinking everything through, but you can do it. Like, you can really do it if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, for Denise, who's got 17 credit hours, you're going to do great. You'll get through it. Trust us. You're going to do wonderful. So, Alexa, thank you so much for joining us. If you guys have any questions for her, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat. You're more than welcome to answer them. But again, thanks for joining us. We do really appreciate it. And it's always a joy talking to you. So I hope you have a really good day.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Have a good one. All right, let me get back to sharing my screen for you guys so we can wrap up this week's Science Periodically. All right, is it popped up on? Yep, awesome. So don't forget to submit your guys' guests for this week's riddle to science@iupui.edu. I got a little hint on the screen for you for who it might be. So the riddle is, to make a call, you must use a phone, which may be an Apple, the business that I own. I may not be a true scientist, but I changed the technology environment. Who am I? And then our Instagram question from last week is kind of all about our current students' experiences with undergrad research. So there were a variety of responses ranging from experiences to tips, but there's one that I kind of really want to focus on. And that response said, I had a friend that was a graduate student refer me to their PI, the principal investigator. So this kind of shows two things that I've heard repeatedly on the show. And that is the first being to get to know your classmates, and then the second being the opportunities that IUPUI offers. Now, this week's Instagram question is kind of all about you guys. So this summer, it's been very different in a number of ways, and I kind of want to focus on the good. So I want to know, what's something new you've learned to do or even about yourself this summer? So for me, that's it's been about my woodworking skills. I actually just built a cabinet for my room. So it could be something simple like that, or it could be something very intricate. Maybe you're learning how to do circus stuff. Karina, our other worker who's great at circus. She did circus for a while there. And then that does bring us to a close for this week's episode. I just want to say that we do really appreciate everybody that joined today's episode of Science Periodically. So make sure you guys are tuning in each week for that nice break from home isolation. Next week's guest, you can see her on the screen right there, is Brittany Collins. She's a recent alumnus who will share her experiences both at IUPUI and as she began her career. So we're going to kind of be touching on things that like how to get your first job out of college, as well as the resources available and the careers and the trends in the science industry. So I'm going to see you guys next week. Have a good one.